One of the pieces of legislation that got a lot of airplay earlier in the year was one that proposed to increase the state's minimum wage. Currently at $10.50 an hour, the legislation, which has passed the state's Senate and is awaiting further action on the House of Representatives side, would raise the minimum wage to $11.10 by January 1st, 2019, and then in increments up to $15 an hour by January 1st of 2024. Manchester in particular, with its concentration of retail outlets and stores, would potentially see a quick impact, although several business owners we talked with said they were already paying above the minimum wage because help was so hard to find.
I think it's a good idea to pay a wage that allows people to be able to afford to stay in this area. And I don't even think at $15 an hour you can get there. I think it requires more than that. But there's no reason why any business that can support itself can't pay a wage that allows its employees to support themselves.
Paul CARROCCIO, the owner of TPW, a real estate and property management company, and Michael BRANDT, the co-owner of WEILL Tavern, echoed similar thoughts as Andrew WEILL.
I think raising the minimum wage is a great idea in Vermont. It does a few things for our economy that probably aren't that obvious. One is it creates more stabilized employment salaries and income to a group of people that maybe aren't making ends meet and are using state subsidies to make ends meet. So by increasing the wages, we take away some of those subsidies which are paid by the taxpayers. So that could in effect maybe lower taxes and help other people, those same people, spend maybe a little bit more or feel better about what they're doing.
I think we all have time to absorb the amount by 2024. It's a long time away, so I'm not opposed to it. You know, to afford to live in this area, it's expensive, so wages should be according.
But Chris Morrow, the co-owner of the Northshire bookstore, had a different point of view.
Well, the minimum wage issue is, I think, more complicated than people make it out to be. Initial reaction is like, oh, sure, people need more money. Its cost of living's gone up. It's all good. But you look at Vermont communities, across the whole state, and there's a lot of businesses in retail and service that have minimum wage or close to minimum wage staff that are going to be heavily impacted by this, and a lot of them are already kind of living on the margin. So I'm worried about the effects on Vermont's small towns and downtowns as this goes into effect. It's essentially payroll is most businesses' largest expense. So if you increase that by 45% over 5-6 years, that's a tremendous increase that businesses have to deal with. And sometimes it feels like the legislature, it feels like there's this pot of money that all corporations have that they can just dip into for this, but in reality there's a lot of stress in the businesses just to make it meet payroll as it is. So if you look at a business like mine, if this goes through over the next few years, it's going to have a number of effects, one of them being a decline in service, because I simply won't be able to have the same number of people.
Representative Cynthia Browning had similar concerns as Chris Morrow.
I actually cannot support that proposal, even though I know many people have a gut reaction of, yes, people should have more money to live on. One of the reasons I oppose it is that since 2014, Vermont has already raised the minimum wage from $8.73, I believe it was, several times to the current $10.50. So we've just raised the minimum wage by 20%. And I think we need to stay there and make sure that employers have been able to adjust to this additional cost before we raise it another 40%, even if it's over a period of years. The current wage of $10.50 will be adjusted for inflation going forward, so it isn't just going to sit there. And everything I've read says that if you do a moderate increase in the minimum wage, which is what we did, you're unlikely to have drastic effects on hours worked or jobs or those kinds of things. But if you would do a big increase in the minimum wage, it's much more likely to have effects on jobs and effects on hours worked. So you could end up with a situation where someone gets an increase in their hourly paycheck, but they have reduced hours, or they lose their job, or they're replaced by automation, or their business moves to New Hampshire, which has like a $7.50 minimum wage. So we want to be sure we're not hurting the people that we're trying to help. Also, with minimum wage increases can also come the loss of benefits because your wages are higher, or even paying higher taxes. So we need to be careful how we do it and make sure that we're actually helping the people we mean to help.
But Representative Linda Joy Sullivan was supportive of the measure.
I think that people need an incentive to get out and work. My hopes are that Vermont can put forth more jobs so that people will be able to go out and earn $15 an hour. I think that the overall tax effect or for people is not going to be such that they will lose that much money from their $15 an hour. And I also think the tax benefit, the credit that businesses can take, will also offset the fact that they're paying more money.
Currently, the bill is before the House Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs. The labor market in Manchester, as in many other parts of Vermont, is very tight, with help wanted signs a frequent sight in many businesses. In the short term, the bill also has to be signed by the governor before it becomes law. And Governor Phil Scott's office has said that while he broadly supports the goal of increasing wages, the minimum wage is a threat to the state's economy, and that he has concerns with the legislation in its present state. For the GNI TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.